Good afternoon, and welcome to another Wednesday episode of Afixify's Industry Chats. I am Jasmine Saliga. I am the founder of Afixify and also your host today. If you are new to Industry Chats, we do this episode every single Wednesday at 12 o'clock Central, 1 o'clock Eastern. And it's an opportunity for us to bring in industry experts of every kind, vendors, consultants, hoteliers, owners, and really talk through various topics around our industry. Everything you're going to hear is educational, and we want this to be a resource for you, a free resource to really help be a guide with things like AI, which is what we're going to talk about today, and strategic decisions for your properties. So I am very excited today to welcome my friend Omar back to the show from Studio Circa. Hey, Omar.
Hey, Jasmine. It's good to be back. I'm very excited for our conversation. And last time we spoke, it was a really fantastic talk. I think the way that you approached with curiosity brought up a lot of interesting discussion. So I'm excited for what's to come.
I feel the same way. So you and I talked at that time about having you on again, and you're one of only 2 repeat guests on the show.
Really?
So thank you. Yeah, I think I've only ever had 2 repeat guests, you and one other person. And that's out of like 55 episodes now. So thank you so much for.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. I loved our first chat. So I'm really excited to get into this today. A different topic today too. So we're going to talk briefly, but shortly. But what I want to do, since it has been, if you can believe it, like almost 2 years, will you just quickly remind us what you do at Studio Circa, your agency, you're the principal. Tell us, it's pretty incredible. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, we're focused on branding and websites for hospitality, specifically boutique and independent properties. We've worked with some major chains, especially within the independent kind of verticals within those chains. So we're working with a property at Design Hotels now, Tribute Portfolio, but generally the focus is truly boutique and independent. And our kind of thesis behind what we do is focus on the emotion and storytelling, which is a very big word these days. But that's one of the things that will never change with hospitality. Like the landscape can change, technology can change, but really the key driver is emotion in terms of leisure travel, especially. So our kind of thesis is that that's what drives booking decisions. It's not just the technology, which helps. It's not just plastering or band-aiding with really cool technology these days, which there's a lot of, I'll admit. But it's connecting to the guests, it's connecting to their identity, how they see themselves, how they see their future self as well. I think we'll get into that too. And that's really the key driver, I think, for most people who travel. It's some kind of emotional journey, an emotional arc. And that's where we focus. We focus on storytelling, building the engine that can drive those bookings and have guests connect to your property in a deeper way than just a basic manner.
Yeah. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you guys were the first, and I might be biased, but the first agency I know of that really, you guys really talk on the storytelling side. Like that is kind of like the trademark of Studio Circa, right? I know other people do that, but it feels like that's really the heart behind everything you guys do is the story and the guest identity.
It is for sure for us. And I won't say we're the first. There's definitely been many agencies and studios before us who I deeply respect for continuing in that process. I think maybe the bias or the confirmation bias is coming because I post about it. I've been posting about it, but other studios are just doing their work and continuing. Yeah. So most branding agencies, true branding agencies that aren't linked to some kind of tech product like a booking engine or kind of internal system, generally do focus on that story. That's what branding is. It's shaping perception and shaping experience for a specific emotional outcome. So that's definitely what we do. There's many before us who've done it, and there's many after us who will continue doing it, but that is definitely the focus.
I love it. No, that's super helpful. Yes, you do a wonderful job about posting and just really your own, right? Like Studio Circa's identity. So I love the work you guys do, and you guys have been a partner of ours now for a while and one of our earlier supporters. So thank you so much for that. We're going to talk today about AI, but I'm excited because it is a different approach. So the show, obviously, we work with so many tech vendors. We're getting a lot of interesting AI topics, but what I'm excited about is like the very first thing we're going to jump into is it's moving really quickly and maybe faster, maybe in a rushed way for the hotel. So tell me a little bit, and I don't know, maybe a loaded question, but like, what is your take just generally if someone's like, what are your thoughts on AI right now for the guest experience in hotels? I mean, what are you seeing?
I think it's very useful. I'm not gonna jump around the topic and try to say it's not useful or it doesn't have a place. It does for sure.
Yeah.
And I think what you do with the Fixify in terms of linking the right people with the right hotels, especially with their focus, I think that's really important. There's no disregarding the impact it'll have. But I feel, as you mentioned, there needs to be a closer look strategically about where and how it's used,
Right.
rather than a full-on excitement to just try to use it everywhere due to speed. The effect of speed is good in certain places, but it also can have a negative impact on perception. So it should be used. There's no disregarding that, but I think it's really more about where it should be used and how much it should be used.
Yeah, and I mean, you made the note, in our pre-show, we're talking a little bit about how it's moving faster than we can keep up with. And then as a result, sometimes it's kind of getting rushed into like communication, messaging, and what is the value there of stepping back? Because I think sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a hotelier, I was just talking about this last week on the show, like there's this pressure to like add AI, and then we're really missing the point of like, find the one that's actually helping you solve a problem, not just because they use AI in the name. So what is your take on like that rushed approach, and how are you helping clients through that, if at all, yet?
Yeah, I mean, we give our thoughts on those things. Of course, some clients have come to us with with AI, like not concepts, but AI briefs almost, which can be helpful sometimes to organize your thoughts. But one thing that I need to mention in many cases is AI can make mistakes. There's literally a disclaimer on the AI, and this really needs to be taken into consideration, because even myself last year, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when it was really catching on, I was using it too. I'm not gonna beat around the bush there. Of course, I was using it. Speed is good, but at what cost? That's where the real consideration needs to come. And I think what's really important is that, I'll give you an example. I'm working with a property, and they had sent a menu of theirs, and it was a JPEG, it was a picture. And I was saying, okay, I'm not going to retype all of this information manually. So this is a good use case for AI, right? Like you drop it into AI, extract the text, and you can copy paste it easily into a menu and a website, whatever it might be. So I dropped it into Claude, and I said, please extract the text. And the text was completely fabricated, completely from A to Z. So I asked, what is this text? I can read the text. It's not like a document. So what is this text? And it said, well, I couldn't open the document, so I read the title of the document and assumed what was inside it. And it didn't like notify me like, hey, I can't open the document, etc. So it just did. It just went, and the confidence with which it went was scary. Like it just output. It's like, here's your document. It didn't say anything else. So again, you think about cases like with legal, with business intelligence, stuff like that. Obviously, those systems are being developed with really stringent fallbacks and like checks, which is great. But when you drop something into Claude or drop something into ChatGPT without those guardrails around it, it can very easily make lots of mistakes, hallucinations, etc. So assuming that this tool has all the capabilities in the world, it has many of them, but it does not mean that it can solve all your problems. Especially with creative work, with really deep thinking, that's truly important, I think, for hotels. It's not about just being fast, it has its place. But shifting that responsibility off to AI is very risky. I think with business intelligence, there's products, right? Like anyone, there's real products that are built around that. I think that's where it can make a big difference. With certain automations, certain routine tasks that can benefit from, set it to the side. It's a very clear process. But when it comes to creativity, when it comes to connecting to humans, I think that's where we start to fall short.
Yeah. That's scary to me. Like my thought when you say that is like, so I am a very high level thinker. I've never been like a deep detail person, which is why like I have Stephanie, right, on our team, and she's like unbelievably detailed. And so for me, someone like me, like that may not have caught that, that's scary with it's presenting this as truth
Yes.
without giving you any indicator. And when we're talking, honestly, tell me if I'm wrong here, but on the guest experience side, that could actually be really risky if we're not doing our homework, because you're going a direction that may not even be the direction you need to go based on a recommendation from AI. So I hear you saying there's some red flags and some risks we need to be aware of.
For sure, and that's a good point. And one thing I do want to mention as well, there was a study recently. Maybe I'll send it to you after the discussion. But I had heard somewhere that so many of these companies, especially large companies, not necessarily in hospitality, but across the board, started onboarding AI for the cost savings, for the offloading of work, lots of layoffs, which is super unfortunate. But have now realized that the savings they were looking for haven't really come to pass. The savings they're looking for, the speed, didn't actually come to pass. So now they're trying to hire back the people they let go of. So there is a study about this. I'll try to find it after. But there's always a risk with that. We can't, in 2 years, or let's say 2 years and a half, when it really became mainstream, everyone started using it, just think that that's automatically going to solve all our problems. I think the human mind is an amazing thing. It's a God-given thing, and that offloading that thinking and that spirit within us, that really makes a big difference in terms of how people experience our product or our service, whatever it might be. It's dangerous, and technology is useful to an extent, but I think there's a really big place for valuing the human and their thinking.
Well, and that's such a good point. Like that scares me sometimes, because there will be times where I'm very used to, I use Claude a lot just to help me sort my thoughts. That's usually like, if people ask me, I'm like, my main use of AI is I'll be like, here's a bunch of jumbled thoughts from a meeting I just had, put them into bullet points so I can follow up. But sometimes I challenge myself, like, is that really using my brain? Do I need to go back and do this on my own? Because it is a nice tool to have, but it's kind of thinking for me. And I'm very aware of that. But one thing that comes to mind too, just like thinking of Studio Circa and what you guys do so well, and you talk about, the brand identity and the guest identity are two different things. Yep. Are you encouraging clients or anyone watching, really, when it comes to establishing those identities and digging deep and all of that, like at the initial part of that, do you keep AI out of that? I mean, how are you guys coming up with that identity for your clients, and where does AI fit in?
Well, we do use AI for some research. So by research, I mean on two parts. One is relevant to landscape, and then we parse through it manually. So instead of, we see what's relevant to a certain property, if they're going in a certain way for their positioning and certain trends. Like there's so many amazing reports coming out, like real reports, not, the throw it into Perplexity, have it come out with something, put it into Claude, etc. But like real research.
Real data,
One of the best ones that I've read so far is from Matter of Form, which is a studio out of London and New York, I think. Amazing work. They work with like heavy hitters, and I truly respect their approach. They're using AI, yes, but that report, it's called, I think it's called Future of Luxury or Luxury 2030. It's something along those lines. That report is probably been touched a little bit with AI, but it's deep insight. It's deep expertise in the field that Claude or Perplexity or whatever cannot come up with. They have questions from their clients. They're pulling from different sources and articles. Like that's the stuff where the value of reading that manually over, it took me like 4 or 5 days to just get through it. But I learned a lot from it. And a bullet point list from Claude might not give me the nuance and the subtlety behind those things. So that's just related to AI. We use it for research, but we also use it for brand research. So historical references. So trying to find like archival images of a property. We're doing that in San Diego right now. Like really niche places to look. AI will speed that up. But in the end, it's what we do with it that makes the difference. It's not that it found an image. That's great. We could have done it, spent hours doing research. What comes after it? Do we decide to do anything with it?
Right.
Do we decide that we found this news clipping from 1942 talking about this property? Do we actually pull something from it or not? So it is beneficial. And again, it's how much and why we use it. Not do we use it everywhere. And that's more an AI and building identity. And then I think you had mentioned guest identity. So a lot of people are talking about this now, which is great because I think it's the key. We believe that the only way any brand, hospitality or not, connect potential customer, guest, etc., is by reflecting their identity back to them, which means who they are now or who they perceive themselves to be in the future or who they want themselves to be in the future.
Right.
So, your mother, right? This is your current part of your current identity. But you may have another part of your identity. Let's just say you want to run a marathon. You haven't done that yet. That's your future identity.
Right.
A company can literally say, a free guide for mothers who are training for a marathon. That's hitting both identities. It could be a guide to motherhood or a guide to running a marathon, and then they can hit both at the same time, which is even more powerful. But I think this goes beyond features, prices, amenities, goes to the emotional arc someone wants to feel when they're at their property. So there's something to be said for nuance and detail and the human experience beyond a spreadsheet of demographics or conversion rates. There's something deeper beyond that.
And I'm like thinking through this, it brings up questions as I always have on the show. But so if we're looking at really guest identity versus brand identity, I would think that a brand identity is obviously it's a more blanketed thing, right? Like I'm this property and this is our brand identity and so forth, right? History and all of that great stuff. But when it comes to the guest identity, how do you reconcile with lots of different guests, right? Like, are you, and I'm sure you get this all the time, but I'm thinking I'm even different from my business partner who I'd travel with, right? Like everybody has those nuances. So how does a hotel with AI or not, like how are you guys guiding them into figuring out, is it like you need like 3 guest identities and that's your target, or how are we doing that? I'm so intrigued.
It's a very good question. And I think there's something to be said for over specificity.
Yeah.
Because when you get niched down enough with, Jasmine is a certain way, Stephanie's a certain way, Omar is a certain way, you get to a sticking point and you can't actually make any decisions. You actually need to have a middle ground where you're communicating to the right people. And I think there is something to be said about like niche communities in hospitality. It's becoming more and more prevalent, which is great. But I think you can also get too niche, where your addressable market just gets too small. So we try to look at things with our clients in the sense of what is true for this group of people,
right?
And what is true for what you can achieve on property,
right?
Everything beyond that is like a bonus. Trying to get too specific, like I was saying this on another podcast last year, is just like, you have a surfer or someone who's into surfing, and then they're into music, but they're also into spirituality, and they don't drink. It's pretty specific, but I think you could maneuver around that. But when you have too many disparate kind of values and identity cues for the guest, it can just become Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So you try to engage with one of the dominant cues that guest has. Like, I'm a growth-minded person, let's say. So it could be a variety of experiences that appeal to me, but as long as they have that dominant factor in them, then it's something that I'll look into. So too much specificity is dangerous. Too loose is very dangerous too. It's kind of a middle ground, and it's per property. It's really hard to make a blanket statement about every single property needs to have 2 main personas and then another 2 sub personas. It's hard to really nail down this one answer.
Well, and that's actually really helpful. And I'm sure, like you said, I mean, it could be different by property. I'm sure you even come into a group and each individual property can be a little bit different. And it sounds like your recommendation is really come back to each touch point, whatever you land on identity, the touch points throughout that guest journey need to support that, right? So are you of the mindset that like, let's create the identity map or whatever you call it first, and then we look at tech and AI and all of that and how that can support it? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, you got that right. I think the tech can kind of go in parallel unless there's something that, let's say your guest is a very, I don't want to say a high-tech person, that doesn't really make sense anymore, but someone who's a very natural user of technology and is excited, like an early adopter. That can influence what technology you choose in terms of the guest experience.
Yeah.
But I don't think the rest of your tech stack, like your stuff on the back end, your RMS, your CRM, all that stuff, the guest isn't going to see that.
Yeah.
So it can kind of run in parallel. But generally, yes, the guest, defining the guest and what they desire to experience on property, and what the property ownership management group wants to put forward in the market, those things help define the brand identity, in quotes, like visual style, the messaging, how the website looks, any kind of touch points, scent, linens, all those things get defined ideally by those two factors: what the brand wants to do, what the guest needs. Strategy workshops, sessions, research lead into branding, messaging, copy, website. So yeah, I think you've hit a point there that's actually really interesting to look into even more, is how much can technology be affected by the initial guest persona, for lack of a better word. I do think it's limited, but I think there are cases where it can actually make a big difference. Like some people like to actually have an app on their phone for the hotel. Wellness hotels are doing that, where you get to track your blood work and they send you like meditations or whatever it might be after the fact. So there's a place for it, I think, and those things can help define your tech stack. But I feel maybe for 80% of hotels, the back end tech stack should not really be that much defined by the guest.
You make a really interesting point, though. Like the guest facing tech, that really does have a lot to do with identity, because even among, we could probably think of our own families or our own friend groups, like how many different preferences. I mean, this sounds crazy, but I prefer a key card still, like versus like a phone. And I don't know why that is. I think it's a control thing. I don't know. Like, what if I can't get into my phone? But
that's a real concern.
Yeah. Like, what if something happens, the phone dies? Like, so it is a really interesting conversation. Then you have people like my parents who they would never, my mom might, but never download an app, for a key or anything like that. It's just interesting to talk about. And this kind of brings me, so since you were last on the show, I've started asking this question. So you haven't gotten this question, but I usually don't tell the guests I'm going to ask it, because I'm just curious your gut reactions. It's nothing major scary, but have you had an aha moment in this process, whether it be with AI, with brand identity, or just anything where you're like, this is why guest identity matters, or this is why AI needs to be, have you had a moment? If not, that's okay too, but where it clicked with you?
There's two things I want to mention here. One of them is about AI. The second is about working with hotels. So the first part about AI is, again, take this with a grain of salt. It's really about how it's used. But I'm sure you've seen AI menus, or posters, maybe on the street where you live. This, again, it's for the sake of speed, right? But there's something that happens to the person's perception when they see that. Something changes. They see that you've taken a shortcut instead of photographing your food. You've had AI create a burger for you and this whole thing. So it looks like you're just cost cutting, you're taking shortcuts. I would rather see a somewhat blurry iPhone photo than an AI generated poster.
I love that.
So with that, you're kind of in a process of self-commoditization. So we're always talking in hospitality about, the OTAs, and we don't want to be commodities, we want to be unique. But using AI and guest-facing assets like posters, menus, websites, I can spot them. I think but it's going to be a race. It's democratizing everything, which is a very interesting idea. It's limiting the barrier to entry, which is great too. But in the end, it's going to be a field of everything looking the same. So it's self-commoditization. I wrote this. I wrote this on a Substack post. It's self-commoditization masked as efficiency.
Yes. Okay.
That really, like, to make the distinction of where to use AI and where not to use AI. It's a good way to think about it. And the second point is about working with clients, which is always such a beautiful experience to go through the process with them from start to finish. What I am noticing a lot of is the desire to have a unique property. Really, like, we are unique, we are different. But then throughout the process, walking it back.
Yeah.
It's almost a risk averseness. Like, what if this doesn't work?
Right.
There seems to be a fear that creeps up throughout the process. There's excitement in the middle. And then as you're working through things, it's like, actually, no, we need to make this more easy and more general almost. Like, we need to tone this down a bit so that the guest understands immediately what we're communicating.
Yeah.
One thing that Matter of Form report that I was mentioning earlier said is that luxury guests now especially like a bit of friction. Friction means effort. And the IKEA effect, which, when you build something, you have more attachment to it. If we dumb something down too much, yes, it's effortless. Yes, it's TikTok eyes or however we want to discuss it, but there's no meaning attached to it. There's no effort, there's no friction, and there's no ownership of, like, hey, this is a cool subject, or this is an interesting restaurant name. I want to ask about it. I want to understand why this concept is named like this. Maybe it's inspired by the neighborhood or inspired by the hotel. So having a little bit of friction is actually a good thing. And I feel that sometimes with some clients, they have that excitement initially, which is great, but then it fades as you get closer. You're putting millions and millions into renovations and builds. I get it. It's very hard to commit, but the opposite is also super dangerous.
Well, and I find it really, what you said just sparked a thought for me is AI was kind of, well, I don't know why AI was created, right? That we're not going to go into conspiracies, but like, AI is supposed to reduce friction because as humans, right, it's assumed that we want less. But actually what I think it's done, to your point, right, now we want friction. Now we want to see a typo in an email or a LinkedIn post. Now we want to see I've been really toying with going and getting new headshots because I've used an AI headshot for 2 years just because as a startup, it's easy. And I remember at that time, I sent it to my family and they're like, we can't even tell, now everybody knows because AI photos are just too perfect. I'm like, I don't actually look like that, guys. But I think what's interesting is that in the effort to reduce friction, it's now created more like a tug of war of human desire to see that, to your point, because it feels more authentic. And I post about it, and I'm not quiet about this on LinkedIn. Like, I am so exhausted with AI. I'm not saying don't use, like, there's a line I had Rebecca Lombardo on recently, and she's like a fractional CMO. And she said, if you need to be out posting for your business or your brand, and you are just not a communicator naturally, it's okay to use it to help you. But where I struggle is like, I don't even read anymore. If I see that format that it was ChatGPT or whatever, and then the comments are AI, I miss typos and unfiltered thoughts. And anyway, so that makes me think it's interesting. It's kind of had the opposite effect.
It has, and it's funny. I mean, I'll put this to you as well. I've thought about this, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Is you realize how quick this happened?
Yes.
How quick the actual adoption and then the whiplash of I'm sick of this has happened.
Like,
it's wild.
I'm going to go way back here from my marketing degree. So we're going back like almost 2 decades now. But there's a word for, when people are marketing, just fatigued. Yeah. And you used to hear it about like advertising and stuff. It's like that fast track. We're just fatigued. I am for sure. But I'm almost like when I see that M dash, I'm just like, nope. I don't want anything to do with this.
Can I ask, again, this is maybe a small point about this. I have my opinions on that thing, on that part, but you see that M dash or you see that structure and you're like, I'm not reading it.
Yeah.
Is it because the person used AI for it? Or is it because you're just tired? Because it might be good information, but you're just tired of reading the same structure, or is it because you know the person might not have actually thought about it themselves?
Both, actually, but I'm leaning more towards the latter, that it's loses some credibility. And I want to be careful because I'm not perfect. I may have used an M dash or two in my day. No, but I think really I try to stay away from it completely now because of that. Like there's people, and some people like him personally and how smart they are. And it's like, I'd rather you cut the post in a third, not use AI, and just share your thoughts. I think it's that. I think it's just, and the format is a little exhausting. At first, the format was kind of like awesome because it put things so perfectly and easy to understand. But yeah, now like I use AI so like the pre-show email I send, we generated that because that's like literally transactional. Here's your links. Here's what we're talking about. I don't really care on that. But yeah, I think on LinkedIn, when it's supposed to be this like thought leadership forum, it feels a little bit like cheating. Do you feel that way, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, about that email, I noticed that it was AI and I didn't care.
Yeah,
I knew that like, you have people on your show weekly, bi-weekly. It's normal. Like that's exactly the process that it's super helpful for.
Yeah.
Here's the link. You don't need to do that manually. Like no one's asking. I'm not expecting Jasmine, who's
the
founder of the company, to be personally sending me this email with the links and everything. But I perceive it as, and again, I've used it before. A lot of my LinkedIn posts before were, formatted and structured by AI, especially maybe a year ago. My ideas were formatted with AI. But when I think of how AI is just taking the average of thinking, let's say, I'm seeing my mom use it now, which is kind of crazy, but I just feel I can picture a person sitting on their computer saying, write me a LinkedIn post about hospitality technology, and then sipping their coffee and then copy pasting it. That's what bothers me. If someone had a great idea and then help format it, help structure it, like hone in on their thinking with AI, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Partner, all good. But when it looks and reads and feels like this is just regurgitated, you're just playing the game of posting. And that's why I've also stopped posting so much. I haven't had the time to write that much in depth. That's why I started my Substack. So I can have a place for writing in depth, like longer pieces, because I want to go back to challenging myself to think like that. So, in my perception, I see the person, sitting on their computer having a little coffee and like,
this is easy.
Right? Yeah. So again, no shame, no shade. People using it, it's part of the landscape now. I just find it. I don't want to talk about hospitality, not using it for guest-facing assets, and myself use it to attract those clients. It's just very hypocritical. I don't like it, and I'm gonna stick to my guns on that. As long as I can.
No, I'm totally with you. And I want to link to your Substack later because I actually follow my friends that do Substack just because I do really admire it. I would love to do something like that someday, but I
would encourage you. It's tough because it is getting to a point where it's harder and harder to think like that, not just because of AI, but social media, we're busy, new kids, it's but I would definitely encourage it because it helps us see the gaps in our thinking.
Yes,
ourselves without something else telling us that there are gaps.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd love to read Substack.
Yeah, I want to read your Substack. Well, as always, so I should have known. I'm like, this is always such a good conversation with us. You just need to become like one of my regular guests. But I love what you're saying, Omar. And for those who want to connect with Omar, of course, for Studio Circa, if you're interested in their services, you can use Affixify to find them. We would love to facilitate that introduction. But how can people follow, so Substack, LinkedIn, where's the best place that people can just connect with you if they hear you on the show today?
Yeah, primarily Substack. But even more so LinkedIn. I had stopped, like I said, I'd stopped posting as much in the last maybe 6 months, but it will be coming back with force. So Substack or LinkedIn are the best places. Our website and Fixify, I think that's the best. Those are the best avenues to do.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you. I cannot believe 35 minutes went by. Like that felt like I blinked, but I always appreciate having you on, Omar. For those listening live, if you want to share this episode, you can do so through LinkedIn, but we will have this on YouTube very soon so that you can access that as well. And we just so appreciate you being on the show, and we will be back next week. So thank you so much, Omar.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next week.